Boyfriend is moving in with his girl best friend and I don't trust her one bit. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost a year. When I met him, he already had a very big group of best friends. One of them was this girl. There's actually another girl in the group, but my boyfriend and this particular girl, let's call her Lacey. Lacey is completely obsessed with my boyfriend. I tell him all the time, but he doesn't want to listen to me. She goes out of her way to spend time with him, and she'll do girlfriend things for him. Sometimes she'll call him and say, I cooked us dinner, come over to my apartment. She even goes to his apartment and helps him do laundry. Let me go back though. When we started dating, he asked me not to be uncomfortable and that him and her were only good friends. But as soon as I saw them with each other, it was visible that she was in love with him. When he first brought me around to meet his friends, she was super territorial. She would sit next to him and even sat on his lap in front of me. And this made my boyfriend uncomfortable. He asked her to sit on a chair instead of his lap. After that, I asked him if he had feelings for her and he said no. He said he's only ever seen her as a sister, that the thought of hooking up with her makes him want to vomit. Lacey reached out to me and asked me to have lunch with her. Throughout the whole lunch, all she talked about was my boyfriend, how amazing he is, and how only a good girl deserves him. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend is moving in with his girl best friend and I don't trust her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, I was sending me on Instagram. And her and I went to lunch, all she talked about was my boyfriend. That's when she started saying things like, he only deserves a really good girl. That's when I was straight up with her. I told her that he had already chosen me because he loved me. And that I didn't need her to tell me what my boyfriend needed. You guys should have seen the look on this girl's face. She was shocked that I would defend myself and even talk back to her. Then she said, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. I told her that I didn't feel bad and that I knew what she was doing. She was basically trying to intimidate me and make me feel that I wasn't good enough for my boyfriend. She denied it and started apologizing. But at least I made it clear to her that I was not stupid and that she was not going to walk all over me like she probably did with all of his exes. By the way, one of his past girlfriends actually broke up with her because of this girl. I mean, Lacey. Found this out through one of the other friends. They told me that I needed to be careful with her. That's why I was prepared to go to lunch with her. Guess what happened though? I called my boyfriend to say hi to him and that's when he starts yelling at me. He said Lacey called him to tell him that I had attacked her at lunch. That I basically threatened her. I explained to him what happened from my point of view, and he said that she was probably just overreacting. But it was her word against mine. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend is moving in with his girl best friend and I do not trust her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. After Lacey told my boyfriend that I had attacked her and threatened her, he told me to keep my distance. So I did. But that meant that he would hang out with her without me. I found this completely unacceptable. That's when I told my boyfriend that she was manipulative, that she had clearly planned everything out so that he and her could be alone. Then I told him that his ex-girlfriend left him because of her. He told me that I didn't know the full story and that I should mind my own business. That's when I noticed that he wouldn't come over to my apartment every day. And guess why? His best friend Lacey told him that she had a stalker and that she needed my boyfriend to stay over her house so that she could feel protected and safe. I just can't. I told him that she was clearly manipulating him and probably lying about the stalker situation so that he could spend more time with her. And just like that, 2 days later, he told me that they were moving in together and that she miraculously found an apartment big enough for the two of them. In 2 days? I don't think so. I think she had been planning this the whole time. And my boyfriend is just stupid enough to fall for it. I told him if he moved in with her that he should just forget about me. He begged me not to leave him, so I guess I'm still his girlfriend. He's still debating whether or not to move in with her. He says he doesn't want to lose me, but he wants to be able to be there for her. I think I should break up with him, but maybe there's another solution. What do you guys think I should do? My husband refused to touch me on our wedding night and says that it's my fault. Our wedding was only 2 weeks ago and to this day he still has not touched me. Here's the thing, we had an arranged marriage. My family is extremely traditional and where we come from it's normal to have arranged marriages. When I was 12 years old, my parents told me who I was going to end up marrying. This all seemed very normal to me growing up because I saw my sisters and cousins doing it. But now that I'm in this, I realize how terrible it is. My now husband didn't actually grow up in the same country I did. In fact, we had only met a week before the actual wedding. I had a really bad feeling a month before the wedding though. So I told my parents I did not want to marry him. That's when they told me that if I didn't go through with the marriage, they would disown me. I would have nowhere to live, no money, and no family. So, of course, I agreed to marry him. A week before the wedding, my parents hosted a dinner for his family and mine. When he came in through the door, I was happy to see that he was actually attractive, but he didn't look at me once throughout the whole night. We finally met a week before the wedding. When he came in through the door, I was so happy to see that he was actually attractive. But this man barely looked at me the entire night. Parents presented us to each other and he glanced at me. That was it. He was extremely cold and basically didn't speak to any member of my family. The only person he did speak to was my father, of course. I spent the entire dinner trying to make eye contact with him, but not once did it happen. Thankfully, the dinner only lasted about 2 hours and his parents and him left. As soon as they did, I burst into tears. Also, I know I'm a beautiful girl. I've had many suitors come to my house and ask my parents for my hand in marriage. They had agreed to this arranged marriage so long ago that it never even gave any other guys a chance. The worst part is that one of the guys that asked to marry me a few years ago, he and I went to the same school, got along, and dare I say liked each other. At least he would look me in the face. I told my parents that he didn't even look at me once. My dad said that I was completely overreacting, but my mother agreed with me, thank God. She told my dad that my fiance's behavior was completely unacceptable, and that the least he could have done was at least said hello to me. My mom was also upset that he didn't even say hello to her, and that he was openly disrespecting our family. I tried to convince my dad to cancel the marriage, but he said no. He refused to look at me on our wedding day. He didn't even kiss me once. The only time he touched me that night was when the photographer asked us to hold hands for a picture. And even then, the way he grabbed my hand was so cold. When it came time for us to go to our room, I was already very upset. He could tell. We got into the room and I went straight to the shower. I took off my dress, showered, and came out. And when I did, he pretended to be asleep. That's when I grabbed him and turned him around. I asked him why he wouldn't touch me or even look at me. That if he didn't want to marry me, he shouldn't have. That's when he told me that he never really wanted to marry me because he had heard things about me. He said that we had some mutual friends, but he refuses to tell me who these friends are. He claims they told him that I had a secret boyfriend and that I had dated many men, which couldn't be further from the truth. First off, my parents are super strict. The only time I was unchaperoned was in school. And he said, "It's your fault, I will never touch you." I started to cry and I called my parents. I literally ran away from him. Told my parents what he said and thankfully they were on my side. My father says the marriage is void if he refuses to have children with me. But guess what? I started doing some digging and I found out that he was the one seeing other women and men. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for switching from non-dairy to dairy milk and accidentally making my flatmate shit herself at an interview? I'm not lactose intolerant. I buy hazelnut milk because I like to have hazelnut syrup in my coffee. And adding hazelnut milk makes it even more nutty. My flatmate is severely lactose intolerant and has been drinking my milk ever since she moved in a few months ago. I don't have an issue with sharing milk with her, but the issue is that she drinks so much of it. I'll only get a single cup of coffee out of an entire carton. Sometimes she'll drink the entire carton before I've had a single drink. She never replaces it, refunds me, or even acknowledges that it wasn't hers to drink. At some point, she stopped buying her own milk and I was having to buy new milk daily. I asked her multiple times why she was drinking my milk and said if she does, can she buy a new carton? She would say sorry, she just grabbed the first milk she saw. And that she'd get me a new one, but just never would. She started getting annoyed when I brought it up and would say I was being dramatic when I mentioned how much it cost. Last week I got sick of it and decided to go back to drinking dairy milk thinking she would buy her own milk, and I thought wrong. The dairy milk is clearly labeled, but she still helped herself. Unfortunately, the day she decided to drink dairy milk was the day she had a new job interview. The effects of dairy-laced coffee she took with her kicked in and she was in the middle of it and she didn't make it in time. She came home absolutely furious and laid on to me about how I ruined her life. How this job was an opportunity that she needed and I destroyed it for her by being selfish. Also that I did it deliberately because I didn't want to share. She thinks I'm in the wrong because I knew she was lactose intolerant. So by switching to dairy milk when I knew she was drinking my milk and might potentially drink it again, I was putting her at risk. Also that milk sharing isn't a big deal and that I'm selfish. She thinks I was overreacting and I should have spoken to her about it instead of secretly changing milks. She has also threatened to report me to the police.
Am I the asshole for not giving my savings to my parents? I live at home still, and I'm in college and working a job. My parents pay for a lot of things, but for my savings, it's all me. I've been working since I was 16, and I've probably saved close to $10,000 by now. My parents have access to my bank account, but they've never crossed that boundary and went into it or anything. I get a notification a couple days ago that my account had a large withdrawal. It honestly freaked me out. So I called the bank and they said that one of my parents must have withdrawed it. When I saw my parents next, I asked them about it and they just straight up denied it. Till a couple hours later, my mom came into my room really guilty and just said that yeah, she needed it for bills. I was livid, obviously. I said she should have just told me and I could have thought about giving it to her, but that she took it out of my account was super not okay. She says since I live here, everything that is mine is hers, that I'm being unfair. Am I the asshole here? I'm the asshole for not paying rent for my boyfriend's apartment. I stayed at my boyfriend's apartment for a week while I was moving into a new apartment. My old apartment got infested with bugs. It's been very stressful and just really not a good time. And expensive. My boyfriend knows all of this, so I asked him to stay with him. He said yes and said that he can't wait to have me around. We've been dating for 2 years. Anyways, after I stay there for the week and then I leave, he hits me with a payment request. His rent is about $2,500 a month. He's requesting me to pay at least $1,000 of it. He says since I stayed there for a week and used all his stuff that I owe him. 1, he never said this beforehand. 2, he's my boyfriend. And this really just came out of left field. When I confronted him about it, he got super upset, going on about how I never help him and he's always there to help me. I've paid for his rent before when he was struggling, but that was a one-time thing. Now he's doing better and he won't help me. He's getting really mad at me and saying I'm being a bitch. And he won't see me until I pay. So, was I the asshole?